guys. I know a lot of folks are very familiar with EOS New York. We have the entire team coming on. That's Kevin Rose, Rick Schlesinger, I believe I said his name right. And then we have Buddy Deck. William Deck is their tech guy, CTO, I guess you could call him. And then we also have Michael Haggerty is their newest addition to the team. He is developing their dApps as well. The whole team is coming on. It's going to be a crowded. We have never had 6 screens on at once, and here they come. That would be Michael Haggerty there. Hello, sir. And that's a beautiful shirt that you're wearing. I think we all have the same shirt on, I believe.
I got one too, yeah. There we go.
Perfect. Beautiful. Yeah. Hey, guys, there's Buddy. That's CTO I was just talking about. Yep. Hey, buddy.
How we doing, guys?
Good to see you. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, good evening.
And there's Rick. Hey, guys. Hey, guys. There's all 6.
Oh, wow. I didn't even have to switch anything around. Great.
So wait, are we all wearing the same shirt? You guys, every single one of you?
Oh my God. Nice.
We're all one with EOS. Here we are. Well, so thank you guys for coming on. I mean, a lot of folks, very familiar with EOS New York. You guys have one of the most visible presences in the community. So thank you guys. And let's just dive right in here. I mean, the who, what, where, why, when. You guys know the format. Let's hear some more about EOS New York.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And it's so great to see everybody's face up here. And we've been longtime fans of the show. We are EOS New York, block producer candidate in North America. My name is Kevin Rose. I'm co-founder and head of community, and we'll go around the horn here.
Hey, I'm Rick Schlesinger, co-founder and head of strategy and operations.
How you doing? I'm Buddy Deck, and I'm in charge of block production.
Hey, I'm Mike Haggerty, and I am lead software engineer.
Great. So this is our core team. We do have a number of other contributors, especially when it comes to breaking through into foreign markets where we want to be able to speak another language. So we have a couple translators that we work with as well as a designer that helps us make everything look pretty. So it was last year where Rick and myself we were enamored with EOS, and Rick had been following Dan for a while with BitShares and Steemit, and we had been active on Steemit. And we really saw, with all of our research, a lot of the problems that were coming into all the popular networks, especially with Ethereum and scaling and congestion. And we saw that EOS was directly addressing these head on, and with a number of very smart design decisions. So we started to follow that closely. And when we got to the topic of block production, we saw a kind of gap. We're like, who are these block producers going to be? There's no one out there. Little did we know what was going on in China at the time, but in the English-speaking world, there was no one. So we looked at what we were doing with our lives and our careers, and we thought about what it could be like, being a block producer. And it really was the idea of not only like being the change you want to see in the world, if that's too corny, but it's also it's having the work you do be impactful and mean something, and be positive change. As corny as it sounds, it really comes down to that. So it's been a tremendous journey these past couple months of getting to know the community, learning a lot about various cultures around the world. Different economic theories, different schools of thought in the Telegram channels. We see a kind of mishmash, a stadium of ideas, as I call it. And we do our best to try to put our ideas out there as much as possible so that people know who we are and they know where we stand. So it's been a great ride so far.
And a lot of you guys, because you're probably the most well-known of the block producers at this point, I'm sure a lot of folks watching would wonder, how did you guys get to where you are? I mean, you're very organized. It seems like you have a good plan, and your roadmap is excellent. A lot of folks have seen that as well. Can you talk more about your strategy and then your operations?
Sure. Funny you asked that. Someone was asking. First of all, thank you. we're always just trying new things, so ways to connect with the community and put our ideas out there. So we're happy that some of those things are working. When it comes to, what we've been doing and why it's maybe resonating with people, I think it's just because we have a good sense of identity. We talk a lot internally. We have, besides our standing, we have a standing status every Monday where we're just open-ended, talking about everything that's going on. We'll get on the phone and we'll just talk it out. We'll think out loud, and we have an idea of what we stand for and what we want to see, and what we want EOS, what we want to contribute to EOS, and what we hope EOS can become. And so I think it's just been putting that out there, and being confident in our identity, and some people, it resonated with some people. So we're very happy to see that.
Nice. Yeah. Go ahead, Bluejays.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, I follow you guys, and you're always putting valued stuff out there. You're creating content on Twitter and on Steemit, and there's some. I would encourage everyone to look you up on Twitter and Steemit as well too, for all the stuff that you guys put out. However, we want to move to a topic which is very on the minds of everyone, is basically, actually, Eric talked about the checks and balances just before on the last segment. And we have this question in the chat about resistance to corruption. So do you guys mind talking about that? What kind of checks and balances you see in place here, and how you guys can contribute to that, or see how that will play out?
Yeah, let me kick that off and then throw it over to Rick. I think he has a lot to say on the subject, but corruption is a very broad term, and if we're talking about corruption in block producers, I think it's absolutely possible that a corrupt actor can enter the space. We're creating mechanisms to remove corrupt actors from the space, but for block producers specifically, there really is no greater incentive to not screw up and to not screw up the network than with a block producer. I can tell you that it's a massive movement of just your individual life to campaign to become a block producer. So to be corrupt in a way that would eject you from an elected position and throw all that hard work away, because there's a lot of pre-work that goes into it, and it just seems unlikely there that somebody would intentionally work so hard to campaign and be elected. But for corruption and different attack vectors on the network, I know Rick has a lot to say on that.
Yeah, sure. I actually think Eric Hoel characterized it pretty well before, essentially talking about the checks and balances that are being built into the EOS software itself. I agree with him that code can only take us so far. Corruption is really a human condition that we need to try to limit the best we can, and software can only limit it to a certain extent with ones and zeros. But I think what is nice about and really great about the EOS system is that what we're trying to incorporate is understanding of intent. And the understanding of intent takes a human element, and that is, I think, going to be very important for the network's health. So to answer your question around how do we, prevent corruption, I think the steps being taken with the Constitution, basically, essentially barring vote buying, and also enshrining the fact that block producers need to be financially independent and not tied to one another are important factors in the nascent days of the network in order to encourage good social norms and encourage good culture amongst the participants on EOS, along with the ability to have arbitrators come in and independently try to help interpret some of these when it might get a little bit gray. And that's why it's important to have independent arbitrators that are not elected. We cannot make arbitrators political. They should be independent entrepreneurs, and they should be transparent in their track records and understanding kind of where they've ruled in the past and whether or not they've been successful. And then finally, and most importantly, the voters. The voters need to be educated to a high degree to understand what this network is about, what we're trying to create, and they need to vote intelligently for good policy, good block producers, and the like.
And they have direct financial incentive to do that as well. You know, it's very easy to think of your vote being lost in the fray when you think about modern day political elections. But here we're in such a emerging stage that the decisions we make in the beginning will have a massive effect on namely the price of the token. So, you know, we've authored a series called Your Vote Matters, and we're currently working on the third episode of that, which we'll probably get into it a little bit later. But it's to encourage thoughtful voting and to educate everybody on the different things you should consider when voting. So not necessarily how to vote, but how to interpret the circumstances to inform your vote.
Nice. Yeah, and you guys have a number of community benefit projects going. You were not only the Vote Matters, but also you released a project a couple weeks ago, or the beginnings of a project. I believe it's something about bandwidth and how to understand how much bandwidth you need for your DApp, which is a question we see quite often, and even Dan has answered that in the chat as well. Can you guys talk more about your project?
Yeah, sure, Kevin. So the EOS Resource Planner is the project that you're talking about, and one of the biggest questions that DApp developers are asking, they're wondering, how much is it going to take to power my idea? How many EOS tokens will it take? And so we're planning to develop a tool that will answer this question. In the first phase, we plan to provide a point-in-time estimate of how much the staking costs will be to stake bandwidth, CPU, and also RAM. And then in phase 2, we plan to use the historical data that we will capture and perform predictive analytics to provide a realistic cost based on varying load times, seasons, and whatnot. So the plan is we're going to host this tool on a dedicated website, and we're also going to develop a REST API that will be open and available to the community. And then we're also going to widgetize the tool so that people, token leasing organizations like Chintai, for example, can embed that on their site.
Nice. That's cool.
One thing I want to add is that every time that we understand that if elected, we will have a limited supply of tokens, and that inflation, which is what the entire network lives on, we have a responsibility to be efficient with it. So everything that we're doing now is practiced for then, right? And for every project we decide to put our limited time into, we want to make sure that it is scalable, that it creates the greatest impact. So this is not the most complex project, but simple can be powerful. And this project is absolutely necessary and can be scalable out to many, many different applications. And we saw the Shintai guys come on earlier, and that's, wow, I mean, what a massive project that is. And it's so cool that they're doing that. That is also extremely necessary. But we want to be able to take the ERP and we're create it as to be modular and slide it into Shintai so that it can help power that as well. And it just anywhere where it can fit on our website, a voting portal, you name it. That's why Mike is doing the API.
Are you guys baselining any of the performance results on the community testnet to get sort of performance data back for estimating how much resources you're going to need?
So we've started to. We've been waiting for a feature complete product that's worth testing. And I think with the release of Dawn v3, we've certainly gotten there, and definitely at the very least the right direction. We're headed in the right direction. So we've started our own internal test net to do some testing, and obviously we will work in the plethora of community test nets that we're involved in to figure out, a good performance test to run.
Sure. I was going to ask about Dawn 3.0 because you guys were one of the first tweets talking about you fired up Dawn 3.0 pretty quickly after it released on GitHub. What were your initial thoughts there?
It was all hands on deck.
It's exciting event.
It was like Christmas, really. I mean, when it came out, I was like, oh my God, Rick and I were texting back and forth over it, and we were all in our private chat. But we were real excited. It's hard to sleep.
All hands on deck is a different meaning when your CTO's name is Deck.
Yeah.
Come on, Deck.
It was a very awkward night for me. No, so it was all hands on when they released, and we had it built and up and playing around with it almost immediately, like everybody else. All the guys in the community test net for sure were little kids on Christmas morning, unpacking their presents. So like I said, the product seems pretty feature complete. Dan's obviously very excited. The guys at block.one are very excited about it, and I'm very excited about it. It's got some interesting things that I think are going to be very important for the future of the network. One of those is what Eric talked about earlier with the IBC, the inter-blockchain communication. I think he stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to talk about that if the topic came up, and it's definitely a way to scale without multi-threading. You could put certain aspects of the chain on a sub chain or a different chain and have it do all that stuff, and then you could bring it back to the main chain. So I think that's super beneficial to the community.
Speaking of which, block.one also has on their roadmap to bring out parallel and multi-threading. Do you think that will just explode the performance of these subnets, I guess you can call them?
Absolutely. The ability to scale horizontally is going to make this thing, hugely viable for things like the next Facebook or next Twitter or what have you. These things that require huge TPS. So anything to help with that, whether it's side chains or if it's multi-threading or sharding or what have you, it's going to help immensely.
Cool.
We should definitely bring up so you guys were on an interview recently in China, and I believe also EOS Union had you on as well. You guys have been doing a great job unifying the community and helping bring everybody together. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I was actually meeting with someone today who is considering candidacy out in Southeast Asia, and they were telling me that the first time the Chinese community had sort of got wind of us was when we reported on F2 Pool purchasing large swaths of EOS tokens and saying, hey, F2 Pool, if you guys are planning on being a block producer, welcome. And then from there, I think it really came to a head when we noticed that there were differences in how we treat, paying for voter dividends or kickbacks. It's a dividend if it's not as bad. It's a kickback if you think it's bad. That's right. And we reached out to EOS Gravity because we thought they were going one way with it, and they responded. We said this is how we believe. We respect EOS Gravity, and obviously we still do. They're doing a great job out there evangelizing EOS to the community. But we're not going to do that. That's fine for you though. But we want to bring to light this kind of dichotomy on this one issue so that it can be discussed in a very public way. And they responded, and I think that was the first kind of global discussion, albeit there was one call and response between the English-speaking world and non-English-speaking world. And I know that obviously not everybody west of China speaks English, but everybody does it pretty well in the Telegram, and none of us are talented enough to be multilingual. So I say it like that, so it's easy.
Yeah, we should also bring up, and you guys in Korea as well. I know you guys have been reaching out to everybody. It's been awesome. So what is next for EOS New York? I mean, we have 7 weeks till launch here. You guys you have surprises every week. It seems like. What's coming up?
Kevin, before we move on to that part, we did want to cover one more hot topic, which was the BPD inflation, the percentage. What were your thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, and I want to make a clarification there because I'm sensing in the community. So we try to be very active in Telegram, very active in Twitter and Reddit and wherever the conversations are happening. And it seems that there may be a misconception in the community because there are some that believe or have used language that have led me to believe that they believe that inflation is set by the block producers, and that is not the case. Inflation is set at 5% by default. If we want to change that, we change it through 15 out of 21 BP vote. What BPs are actually setting is their percent revenue derived from that 5% inflation. So they can up to close to 5% set what they're going to get paid, but it's not actually setting the inflation. So for those people out there that are campaigning for having inflation be as low as possible, we can't help you right now. It is 5%. So just want to lay that distinction out there. And then also that inflation on EOS is similar to other blockchain networks in that it is how the network exists. It is the source of incentives for people to validate transactions, right? But in the way that it's been chosen to be designed on EOS, it is the mechanism that allows for feeless transactions. So block producers absolutely should be paid through inflation. It's that which enables feeless transactions. So I just wanted to set the stage there, and then we'll pass it over to Rick because he's been working a lot on this.
Yeah, and thanks, Kevin. And inflation is, as Kevin was mentioning, the lifeblood of the network, and it needs to be treated as a scarce resource. And especially in the formidable years of a network, it is important to give or provide resources in a widely distributed manner to ensure the success of the network. So, and we've learned this from prior chains like BitShares, which their community voted to have 0% inflation, and then they could no longer, they had troubles finding block producers, and then they had trouble getting community projects kicked off. So we need to sort of rethink in the economic community what inflation means in crypto economics versus what it means in fiat economics, because they're very different. When you inflate a fiat currency, you're debasing the currency, and you're often giving it to friends and politically connected individuals. But with crypto economics, what you're doing is you're providing the resources to run the network. That's what you're doing. It's going to a productive use, and I think that we all need to do a better job of helping to educate one another on that concept. One other thing I'll mention is that, we can't have a thoughtful conversation about inflation with respect to, say, BP pay without first understanding the costs involved with running a block producer itself. So there's everything from server costs, vendor costs, paying your people, running a 24/7, 365 operation. Maybe you're paying some sort of tech support to help. So you need to have this sort of baseline understanding too. And so recently the community got together and we projected what we would expect a block producer to cost, both with one-time upfront costs to purchase all the equipment, and then also what your ongoing operating budget would be. And I'll just share a few of those numbers just so the community is aware, and I'm happy to link to this cost model. It's open source, so you can play around, you can put in your own projections and everything like that. But when you look at one-time cost for a bare metal solution, you're looking at a range between about $300,000 all the way up to $1.6, $1.7 million. If you're really trying to build out a data center ready to go for this sort of network. And then your ongoing expense is anywhere between $900 to about $1.1, $1.2 million a year. So you have to have.
Hey, Rick, can you clarify if that was for the standby or top 21? Because I know you were projecting out across.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yes, that is just for a normal block production outfit, right? So that could be a standby or a top 21. The baseline is basically, and here's few key assumptions: for team members, a bare metal solution at either a co-located space or a proprietary facility, and that's what you need. And part of what I was mentioning earlier about, in the formidable years of a network, you need to provide for the resources so that this thing cannot be taken down either from a technical or a financial attack vector. So that's why we start with the baseline cost of how much this will cost to get up and running and how much it'll cost to be ongoing. So you're playing with those sorts of numbers, and you need to then work backwards and say, do we want 121 block producers that are ready to go, ready to spool up at a moment's notice if they get voted in or a few get dropped out of the top 21? I would venture a guess to say that the community does want that they do want a strong network with backups and standbys ready to go. So we need to take into account the ongoing expense of running one of these block producer standby units, and then work forwards from there. So again, the key takeaway is that there are technical and financial attack vectors, and we need to, if we can basically cover off on the financial attack vector, we're going to have a more secure, stable environment for this network to thrive into the future.
So the answer is we don't know what it should be yet.
We will learn.
Yeah.
But there is a balance between efficiency. There's an efficient balance there.
Yeah, and it needs to be reevaluated. It's not like we have our bid for revenue from inflation, and then that's what it is for the next, however long we're elected for. It should be reevaluated in a number of times throughout the year based on what the cost of the token is, the cost to run whatever the operation is, et cetera, et cetera.
And just to bring one last point, if we assume a token price of $6 indefinitely, which it is around today, and you're assuming, say, a $1.2 million operating budget, you are profitable as a block producer in that case. However, we've noticed that a break-even point is somewhere around $2.90. So if that token price ever dips below that, and you're also putting downward pressure on, say, BP inflation revenue, you're going to have a problem, because essentially you're going to be loss leading block producers, and I'm not sure how long they can stay in business running at a loss.
Wow, and we have the chat just fired up pretty quickly when we started talking about the inflation. So thank you for running some numbers here. Hopefully we can, as you said, education will be key. We'll have to keep bringing this up. What are the next steps for you guys? What is coming up with EOS New York?
Yeah, so next steps for us is inflation is a hot topic, and we're continuing on, like I said in the beginning of the discussion, with Your Vote Matters number 3. It's kind of inflation in the network, and I don't think that this is a topic. This topic is too big for EOS New York or any one block producer. So we've approached EOS 42 and EOS Sphere, who we respect, and we want to work with them to develop a kind of co-authored piece. And we've also brought on Multicoin Capital, which is a cryptocurrency fund, who is very knowledgeable in the space outside of EOS. So we don't want to just bring in the same kind of echo chamber thoughts that we've surrounded ourselves with, but somebody who really knows what's going on around the space and can provide those examples to have input as well. So there's that. We are continuing with our meetups. We're trying to schedule one for this month. I believe OCI, Object Computing, is having a tutorial on developing on EOS. We want to support that. We've got our I'll just mention our blockchain and beers that we have quite frequently in the city. Scott Minter, shout out to you. He's planning that for this Thursday. We've also brought on a new advisor, and the reason why that's really important is one of the items on our roadmap is to deploy and fund research on consortium blockchain economics and how we are affected and how we make decisions. So Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about that our new advisor?
Yeah, and so this is some new information, and we'll look to put out a post with more information either tomorrow or Wednesday. But Leah Palagashvili has graciously agreed to become one of our advisors. She is an economist at SUNY Purchase, and she also does a lot of research with the New York University School of Law. So it's NYU Law. Her background, we can get into and I can link to, but she's a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient. She's been published in the Wall Street Journal and multiple other media outlets. She talks about governance, regulations when it comes to entrepreneurship and businesses. She does a lot of stuff with financial technology. And, because her background in economics is also she has knowledge about Austrian economics and other sorts of aspects, we just view her as being key to advising us and advising the community on how to be successful. And we will look to her for a lot of guidance, and we hope that the community will find what she produces in terms of research to be valuable to as well. And she will be focusing on doing research directly on the EOS economic system itself, as well as the governance aspects. So we'll be providing her data, and she can be writing research and other sorts of reports on that.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's something that we have been lacking in EOS. Probably many cryptocurrencies, if you want to call them that, could use an economist rather. Could certainly benefit from an economist. So
absolutely, and plus some of this stuff, I mean, is frankly going to be learned as we go. We can draw upon past economic learnings, but there's a lot of new ground to cover when it comes to incentive structures and sort of what might become a firmless world with just DAOs operating. So there's so much exciting stuff to come that you need sort of all smart people, hands on deck.
You said it.
Helping. So, people like Eric Hall, people like Leah Palagashvili. So everyone.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, friend. Look forward to that announcement. Go ahead, Blue Jays.
I was just going to say, thanks for bringing in such highly qualified people to the community. I think it's great that we're not just a sounding board and an echo chamber, right? And like we're just hearing each other talk. It's great to have that perspective and opinion.
Yeah,
agreed.
But the last, and I can't actually say it yet, but there are a few other surprises because we're trying to look past June and what are going to be the. We were talking about whether or not vote buying it should be in the Constitution. We're talking about what is appropriate for inflation. We're trying to look at what these very important debates are going to be up until June and after June. And there's some fun things that we're working on that we think are going to be extremely valuable to the community. We're excited to bring you more once we're able to have something to show.
Nice. That sounds great. Well, thank you guys for coming on. We always enjoy talking to you guys. We've seen you around the community, and I'm sure we'll see more of you around all the chats. Where can folks get a hold of you? Website and Twitter and
kind of you name it. So we're EOS New York everywhere. On Twitter, where we're very active, but I'm EOS New York on Telegram. We have a channel for just EOS New York chat, which is really just it's like just a smaller community where you can ask us questions directly if you ever have them, or what have you. So that's EOS New York chat in Telegram. And our website is eosnewyork.io. You can sign up and subscribe to our email list where we send out regular updates about what we're doing and what's happening in the community as well. So thank you very much for all of you out there who are supporting us currently. We would not be able to do anything without your support. So thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, thank you guys, and we'll see you around, and have fun up in New York.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Kevin and Blue Jays, thank you for all the work you're doing. It's very important. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks,
You're
Mike.
welcome.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you.